All right, in this video, we're going to break down the evidence from last week that we heard on the Satoshi identity trial and determining the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto once and for all, Copa v. Wright, and we'll go ahead and get started. So last week, I was at spring training in Arizona, and I met up with T38 Taylor on Twitter. We spent some time together, and we're able to kind of break this thing down quite in detail. So I want to recap as to really what happened, in the courtroom last week. I think it'll be really valuable to show. So remember, we got a number of experts that Copa was bringing forward. We had Madden, and we got Rosenthal, and then we had the lady that was the cryptocurrency expert. She was a professor, nameless. And so let's just start with Madden. The Madden Report. Remember Madden? We talked about. He was challenged on his actual authorship of the report, and on cross-examination, he admitted he didn't write the report. It was written by Tristan, who was one of the attorneys, or at least worked for the law firm for Copa. That created a massive doubt in his independence as an expert. The other thing was he was challenged on his actual qualifications. He had limited qualifications. He had, he took in some courses that took a few months to become an expert, but he didn't have the certifications that would have been required, it looked like, to really give him strength as an expert. So it just Madden's, if we're basing it on a beyond a reasonable doubt that Dr. Wright committed all these atrocities, I mean, there's not just a little doubt, it's so much doubt that Rosenthal I just don't see how Rosenthal is going to be considered. In fact, I was surprised to see they brought him forward again to challenge Wright a third time when he came back. That was Madden, excuse me. Now, Rosenthal was qualified. He was the second expert. He was extremely qualified. In fact, he was so qualified that his qualifications were not challenged. The issue was with first of all, one more thing with Madden. We gotta remember that when Wright's counter experts, now to kind of posture the way that the Wright legal team is looking at this. When Wright's counter experts had their chance to be cross-examined, they were going to submit them and then let Copa, Jonathan Hoff, review, cross them. They rested. Meaning that they didn't even bother bringing them up on the stand. Copa, Jonathan Hoff, he gets up and he says, "My lord, we never got a chance to cross-examine the experts for Dr. Wright to challenge Madden. Will you please consider the joint statement report in evidence?" And then the Wright legal team says, "No objection. Go for it. Have at it." That was an extreme sign of confidence right there by the Wright legal team about the Rosenthal report, about the Madden report, excuse me, because they appear to be so confident on that case right there that they're going to rest, not even bring their experts in, which are likely weak anyways. They probably had weak expert rebuttals, and they had these compromised reports potentially with Edgar Hansen. However, they were still resting on it. They could have brought him forward, and they didn't. So I think that shows the posture for the right side on the legal team right there. And I'm going to rule out the intentional, potential intentional grounding where they're just intentionally throwing the case. I'm going to rule that out. I don't even think that's possible. I don't see Wright's team potentially throwing the case on purpose. They're just extremely confident against the Madden report. And then Rosenthal, if you guys remember, Rosenthal's report was also was challenged in the way of his completeness on the report. He did a test over the latex files in the latex, the Bitcoin white paper being written in latex or not. And he admitted that he did do a test on one system, but he didn't do it on the other system. Okay, so he admitted that. And Wright had submitted on his report that it was written in both, and therefore both of them had to been tested. Rosenthal didn't complete the test. He said that it was just more convenient for him to do it one way than the other. That was what he was more familiar with. So that's the problem for Rosenthal. It looks like his report is incomplete. His findings are incomplete. And so I suspect that the court's going to make a finding about that and say that Rosenthal just was unable to complete the entire analysis. Therefore, again, it's creating too much doubt in the mind of the court to evaluate that Wright somehow doctored the Bitcoin white paper in latex and didn't write it in latex. I'm just way too much doubt again. His report's incomplete. The third expert was the cryptocurrency expert that challenged the Zem Gao examination by Dr. Wright. Now, Zem Gao was a Bitcoin expert for Wright, and then there was a lady who was a professor, which I don't even remember at this point, but she came forward, and I think what was unique here is that Zem Gao was examined, and he was shown his report wasn't challenged by Copa in the way of independence, meaning that it was written so well, being a prolific writer and an attorney. It seems like he wrote his report so well it wasn't even challenged at all. They challenged his personal life and his own personal, what he did in his spare time, in his free time. They had the right to do, but his report wasn't challenged. So I think that shows a lot of strength in his report, And now the big difference was the countering expert to show about cryptocurrency that Copa had. Now, when she was challenged, her report was challenged on again the completeness of it, and also the biased nature of it. Because if you remember, specifically, it was challenging the Gavin Andresen test signing in 2016. And she was stating that what the cross-examination said was they were just pulling out one piece at a time from the Gavin Andresen transcript, and the main point of the whole transcript, was left out from a report, which was where Gavin Andresen says that he opened the package of the computer. It was open in front of him, and it was completely sealed. Period. The package of the new computer that the signing was done on was sealed when he got it and opened in front of him. Period. Then he went on to say something else, but she left that part of her report out. I mean, and that just was like the most important part of the report to show that this happened. She just said, "Oh, I forgot to put that in there." That's just that right there showed that her report was either incomplete or it was with a particular view. And the other part was that. Counsel for Dr. Wright rested again after he says, well, wait a second. So you, specifically, she had made a lot of claims about how possible things could have gone wrong with the 2016 Gavin Andresen signing. And she had these potential hacks and how, she cited this 2022 government attack that happened in this industrial scale. And that was a possibility for what could have gone wrong. Counsel asked him, but she says, but I'm not saying any of that happened. She says, I'm not saying that happened in this case. Those are just things that happen in other places. And then counsel says, well, then why did you put it in the report if you're not saying it happened? No answer. Again, this is just too much doubt. Again, it's not meeting the standard, the burden of proof from the Copa side. And if it was, I would be the first to say it was. All right. Now I will be frank here that before the experts came in and testified, if you go back a few weeks ago on my videos, you will see that I made the call that Copa was going to win the case. Okay. I thought Copa was going to win. Dr. Wright was going to lose because what we were hearing about the expert reports on paper was extremely strong, and we were hearing Craig Wright's rebuttal evidence was extremely weak. That was what we were reading, we were hearing. Craig Wright's rebuttal evidence was admitting some of this stuff, and if it wasn't challenged, but I was always keeping in reservation where it's possible that these experts could be impeached. Now, we call it like an impeachment motion over here. I don't know if they don't, seems like they don't do that in London. But still, the experts got to be independent. The experts got to be qualified. They got to be competent. They got to be certified. I mean, these are standards they have to meet, and there can't be any doubt in their testimony when they're trying to meet this high standard. And in this case here, they just absolutely. I mean, Madden absolutely. To be frank, he shit the bed. I don't know what Madden did. Why he said what he said, but he was improv. He was just being honest. It sounds like he couldn't hold back in saying what he said. So by the time he got up there and testified, I think that was a turning point in the case for Dr. Wright, and then the momentum all shifted once he admitted that he didn't write the report. I mean, that was just real big egg on the face for Copa and Jonathan Hoff and how they let that happen. That's poor management on their side. They should know better than to have an expert not writing his own report and having their own staff writing it for him. Shame on them. So that being said, I don't think there's any question now at this point that more likely than not, the court's going to find for Dr. Wright, and he's going to be named Satoshi Nakamoto. So it's rather, so this is a very substantial point in history right now. And, for those small few people, 1,000 people that are going to watch this video, I mean, I don't know how many people are going to watch it, take this seriously as a little piece of inside information, because, I mean, I've watched this and analyzed this trial from the inside of the courtroom every single day. And, I'm really, honestly, a week or so back, 2 weeks back, I was being very frank that Copa was going to win the case. They were going to win the case. There was no doubt. Wright was going to have to pull a rabbit out of his hat. I was wrong. He didn't have to pull a rabbit out of his hat because, I mean, literally, Copa's witnesses crapped the bed on the stand, which is absolutely surprising. That's what happened. And because of that, they're just not going to meet their standard. I don't see how they're going to meet the burden of proof on their side. And there's just far too much. There's far too much supporting evidence on the Dr. Wright side without getting into all that. I mean, we could go into all the witnesses, the Stephen Matthews, the Mr. Pham, Dr. Pham, his sister's testimony. We can go through the extensive witnesses, but a lot of people are still complaining and griping about some sort of a watermark or him signing these keys. And it's clear that that's absolutely not necessary. It's just not necessary. He's going to be able to do it. Right, Dr. Wright's going to be able to do it without some sort of a scientific, some sort of a mathematical computer science thing. He's going to do it the regular way that the law prescribes, which is evidence and witnesses and impeaching the expert witnesses from the other side. So that's how I see this thing going down. We're going to go into closings next week, but this is just a little bit of a premonition and on my prediction of how this case is going to go down. And it's going to probably take a while. I think by May we should have a final ruling. And I don't even see. I mean, I would see Copa probably is going to have to appeal this ruling, but I don't see Wright having to appeal at all. There's just he's going to be determined to be Satoshi Nakamoto, and we're going to roll over to the BTC Core passing off claim after this. And I mean, all hell is going to break loose. I mean, in the industry. So I mean, if you're still holding what they call Bitcoin Core, get ready for that to change. I mean, go ahead and read the Coinbase initial IPO offering for the warning in there. I mean, there's a warning in there. It's very clear. It's explicit what it says that could happen. I'm sure people don't like the sound of this that are holding Bitcoin Core. And I was on one of these spaces listening in, one of the spaces last night with Cardone and some of the small blockers were talking on there. And it seems like from what the small blockers are, their point is that they're running what's called like a Raspberry Pi, a little home node on their small machines. And they appear to be mining empty blocks. And that's their contention. They believe, this is just from what my little, the way I understand it, is that they believe that that's important to them because if the block size expands, they won't be able to run their small home node and mine these empty blocks on the blockchain. That may be true. Okay. But go back to the white paper. Doesn't the white paper say that nodes are paid? Nodes are the ones that are paid the block reward. So if you're mining an empty block as a node and not being paid, that's not even that seems to not meet the element to be a node, so it seems to be that's just more of a hobby that you're doing and you got the blockchain on there. You're not getting any block rewards. You're just it's a hobby project. That's not the same. That doesn't seem to meet the element. So I would hope that those, the small blockers revisit the white paper and evaluate what that actually says, about nodes and what defines a node. So, it's an interesting time, but hopefully the people who aren't so familiar with this case can take notice of this video and be mindful for what's happening, because we got a giant pump in the BTC Core coin. And I'm applauding for those people. I met with a gal over the weekend, and she was heavily involved in that. And I applaud her. She was going to sell her house to go buy more BTC Core because of what somebody called Michael Saylor was saying. And I'm just like, hey, that's a high risk move. And I mean, it's when you're in a Ponzi like that, it's kind of like you could still make money. You might still make money. Okay, but learn from my experience. Terra Luna. I was involved in that Ponzi. Okay. When that Ponzi freaking hit, I got caught with my pants down, even though I was on the stable coin side in UST, and I thought I was safe. I was out of the Ponzi scheme. I was in the stable coin. But boom, Ponzi scheme hit, went to zero, and we all lost our money overnight. So just be mindful. I'm not hoping that happens to the BTC Core side, but be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share this video, everybody, and I'll see you guys at the top. This is Gavin Mail.